This is something I'm very excited to begin. This is 100 days of product development. Think of it like a boot camp. Today, we're going to start with command line. It's something that you need to use every single day as a product developer, helping you become aware of the terms and skills needed to be a successful product developer. I want to frame why. What is the pain that this solves? I think every one of these skills can relate to a specific pain that the entire industry has felt, that specific people felt and then made into a pattern for developers, and that is the end product. When I showcased in a previous video how I see the 4 steps of making a product, the last one is what I want you to keep in mind. Deploying the product, being finished with it, handing it off to the web, handing it off to a device. We're translating what we see as value or stakeholders see as value into something, and that something involves a computer. Command line, in my opinion, is the most literal version of us communicating with the computers to manipulate the files, to change the files in meaningful ways. We're essentially step by step working with our computers to accomplish goals. It's the most manual part of what you do, but it helps you to have that end in sight because the code we're going to write is telling the computer how to do something, albeit in a dynamic way so that we don't repeat ourselves. You're replacing a click on a screen with typing out a word that stands for the same thing that the click represents. The pain is there. Being able to effectively translate what we need to happen to a file to a bunch of words is the beginnings of learning to code. This is a fundamental skill that I think will help you be as successful as possible. So here we are, the beginnings of command line. Day 1, command line. We're going to overview what command line is, why we're using it, and what the file system is. The second thing, current directory. What's the concept of where we are? Because context is very important. The third and last one is renaming and moving. These are actually the same command, but we'll get into that in a second. So here it is, the file system. Imagine this is a window in which you see a folder and you want to open it. And it'll bring you to this next screen where you see all of the other files and folders that are inside of it. So your current directory was here. After you double clicked, your current directory was over here. Parent and child. It's very important to be able to, in our heads, hold these mental models of this was the container or the parent for all of these other files and folders. And once we double click or change our current directory, we then see all of the things inside of it, all of the child relationships. How to change a directory. When you're in command line, you can type a command here. You'll replace the word command with something like cd, which stands for change directory. This allows us to be one place and go to another. When you're dealing with pointing and clicking, you're limited to what you see. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG. This is a common pattern for graphic interfaces, things that you see. When you're in command line, you're given a lot more control over where we are at any given point in order to change things there. So change directory. This will allow us to say where we currently are, which you can find through a command called pwd, print working directory. So let's say we're inside of a folder called work. And there's another folder next to it at the same level called personal. We want to get inside of personal, but we're currently inside of work. This is our current one. Our first command inside of command line, be pwd, it would have something along the lines of current 1 / And what that shows us is that our current directory is called current 1, and the / is an indication that anything to the left is a folder. some clues, some context to where we are. If we want to then change our current working directory, so our second command will be inside a command line. That's what the $ means. cd ... So there's some magic happening here. These dots are very symbolic. The first dot, if you just type dot, that means where we are. This directory. By the way, directory and folder are synonymous. They're things that I will interchange. If we want to go up a folder, if we use 2 dots, it'll bring us up. We'll go from our current working directory as work, we'll go up 1 to the parent folder. If we were to name that, both of these directories are inside of another folder, documents. Now, our current working directory, if we were to ask command line, it would now be documents. If we now want to change our current working directory, we would use cd again. We would repeat step 2, but we would replace these 2 dots with the word personal. Because our current working directory is documents at this step, at step 3, we can now have context of what personal is. If we were to start from work and we wanted to get into another folder that was at the same level, a sibling level, /personal, and press return and cause the command to go up 1 and then down into personal. cd ... So now we're inside of the parent document folder, and now we can go cd change directory to personal. And if I go back, combine those 2 commands together, then I can go up the 2 dots, up a directory, and then down into work. As I mentioned, moving and renaming are the same command. It is mv. mv allows you to take one folder or file and rename it. If we are inside of work, and work has 3 files, and we wanted to rename file 1 to file A. So our goal outcome is we want this to be file A. And this is our current working directory. We can use command line to say, and again, we do not type the $, it's just signifier that we need to type this inside of terminal or command line, mv space what file we want to change, which currently is file 1, another space, and what we want to change it to, which would be file A. Yes, this is more complicated than right-clicking and renaming, but again, this is precision, and it gives us a lot more power from different points inside of our file system than a GUI. We can only modify things that we see. And right now we're mimicking and copying how our graphical interface, how the Finder window works. But that's because we need to be able to copy effectively before we find our own voice and create more complex things. So this is the what to change, and this is to change it to. What do I want to change and what do I want to change it to? File 1, it would no longer exist. This would then remove file 1 from our folder work and rename it to file A because we used this one command. Much like I covered in the overview, if I want to change file 1, the one up here, to file A, I use the mv command. Again, I don't type the $, that's just a convention to document, to explain that it's a command line. So I type mv, file 1, that's the one I want to change, into file A. Now if I ls, which is another command we'll cover tomorrow, we can see what's inside of this folder. Much like when you double click or you just see in the Finder, I see file 2, file 3, and file A. Here we are, day 1. Take a moment there. Basic doesn't mean easy. This is very hard. These first few videos are to help you become aware of the things that you don't know about, giving you these terms, and I'll repeat these terms over and over again. These are just the first 100 days of helping you become aware of product development. It took me personally months to really understand anything to do with programming. I didn't feel comfortable doing those things, and I failed the first few programming classes I went through. Those were meaningful failures for me. When you feel that irking, stomach-churning feeling, that's important. Becoming aware of these terms so that you can have confidence when you actually use them.